Are you looking to take your lawn to the next level this spring? Well, you found the right channel. Welcome to the Great Creek North. My name is Wade Murray. I'm a lawn care enthusiast, as well as I worked in the industry. And today we're going to be talking about how to fertilize your lawn this spring and what fertilizer you should be looking for to put down in your lawn this spring. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. For those of you new here, make sure you hit subscribe. I know we got lots of new people coming in. It's spring, the lawn season's coming. I'm going to teach you how to make your lawn as green as mine is in the back. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions, leave them down below or visit my website, greatgreennorthlc.ca, and you can ask any questions there through the email. So as you can see, spring has sprung and the lawn is nice and green and growing behind me. And the best thing to do early on in the spring to get that lawn green and healthy is to put some fertilizer down. Help kickstart the lawn from being dormant throughout that entire winter period when the lawn's been sitting cold and brown and dead. You need to get it started and growing back up again. If you've been following along with the series, last week we did the dethatch. Once your dethatch is complete, you can go ahead and put down some fertilizer. In the golden horseshoe area I am in right now, we are pretty much ready for fertilizer go time. We've hit those temperatures. We're sitting around 8, 9, 10 degrees in the double digits as well. Our soil temperatures are sitting around 50 degrees. As you can see, the lawn is actively growing and starting to wake up. We're getting lots of rain. It's perfect time to get out there, get the fertilizer down, and help get the lawn starting to grow. So the first major thing to look at when you're looking at a bag of fertilizer is there's 3 big numbers on the bag. Those numbers are N, P, and K. That's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And each one of these equals a different type of growth in the lawn. Your nitrogen is the up, everything above the ground. Your phos is the down, everything below the ground, root growth, all that stuff. And then your potassium is all around. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, up, down, all around. That's the easiest way to think about how your fertilizer is going to be affecting the growth in your lawn, and thinking about what you're putting down and what your response you're going to get back out of it. So if we think about this, what do we need in the spring? Well, in the spring, we need a little bit of up, right? We've lost a lot of the leaf surface over the winter. We want to get the lawn growing again, so we want to kickstart it with a little bit of nitrogen, but not too much, because once the rain starts coming and the good temperatures come, your lawn's going to be growing too much, and you don't want to get it growing so much that you can't keep up with it mowing wise and everything like that. You definitely want a little bit of down as well. Fall is normally the best season to promote root growth, but promoting a little bit of down is great in the spring, and we definitely need a lot of all around. We want to promote the all around health of our lawn, help get the lawn kick started from the dormancy period it just sat in over the winter. So up, down, all around, we want all 3 of those major food groups in the lawn in the spring. I personally recommend, if you can find an all-purpose fertilizer in the spring to put down on your lawn, this is going to give you the best results in the spring. We don't really know what's going on in our lawn, especially if it's a house we've just moved into, or we're someone who hasn't really been doing much in the lawn. We don't know what's in the lawn. We don't know. Some soils naturally have more nitrogen in them. Some soils have more phos in them. Some soils has more potassium in them. Depends on where you live, what your soil type is, and what the previous homeowner put down. Maybe the previous homeowner put in a lot of nitrogen heavy fertilizer. So your nitrogen in your soil is way up here, but you're missing those other 3 major food groups. So the best thing I always suggest in the spring, if possible, is to find a fertilizer with those 3 major food groups equal. If you can find a 10-10-10 or a 16-16-16 or a 30-30-30, this is going to be perfect. You're going to put this down in your lawn. You're going to check off that you fed those 3 major food groups in your lawn, and your lawn should be happy and healthy for the spring. And then throughout the rest of the year, we can focus on narrowing down into feeding the specific food groups we need to feed depending on what type of season it is. So without further ado, let's go look at a fertilizer bag and see what we're looking at when we're going to be shopping for fertilizer, and then we're going to show you how to put it down. Alright, so let's take a look at this bag of fertilizer here I have, for example. So again, these are the 3 big numbers we just talked about. The nitrogen is always the first number. This is your up. Middle number is your P, or your phos. That's your down. And the last number is your K, your potassium, and that's all around. So what we're talking about when we say up, down, all around, I got a little piece of grass here I pulled out of the lawn. Up is going to be all this green leaf surface. This is the soil levels right here. This is going to be everything that we see above the lawn. This is all affected by nitrogen. down, that's everything we see below the soil here. All these little roots, these roots are what's going to reach for water, reach for your nutrients, everything like that. The more P you push, the more roots you're going to get, the farther the roots are going to spread, and therefore the more nutrients in your lawn, which adversely affects the nitrogen, the up. So you put a lot of nitrogen, you're going to get a lot of leaf surface, not a lot going on down here. You put a lot of phos, you're going to get a lot of roots, not a lot going on up here. And then potassium is the all around. It's going to affect both parties here. Most of the time when we look at potassium, we look at recovering from a sort of form of stress, heat stress, winter stress, disease pressure, all that stuff. Normally potassium is really going to help when you're trying to recover from stress. Phosphorus is, you normally see in starter fertilizers, your phos is really high. That's because rooting in the fertilizer or rooting in the grass is really important. We don't really care too much about the nitrogen or the overall leaf surface that's coming up above the ground, but we care about getting the roots nice and strong and established to help feed that lawn as it goes into a time of stress. So that's why normally in the starter fertilizers you'll see that second number quite high. Normally in winterizers or some sort of fall blend, we do see that potassium number go up a little bit. That's because we're trying to recover from the summer, and we're looking for a little bit of potassium in there to kind of help with the overall health of the plant. That's why we normally see that third number go up a little bit. So this is what I am putting on my lawn this spring. This is what I put on my lawn pretty much all year round. I put down liquid fertilizers to help push through the rest of my micronutrients, and I'll be talking about this a little bit more in my fertilizer guide that's coming out next week. But mainly the reason why I use this is I hit all those other food groups. I know what's in my lawn. I do soil tests and make sure I know what's there. I'm looking for a big boost in nitrogen to help get the lawn growing, and I want a little bit of potassium to cover from the spring. I know my roots are nice and strong, and if I want to push root growth, I'll push it with a different liquid product that I know has a high rate of phosphorus, and we can push that in the lawn later. But this is what I'm putting down in the spring. It's just going to help give me an extra boost of growth, and that's really all I'm using this for. So if you can't find a 16-16-16 in your area, I know they can be kind of hard to find, those all-purpose fertilizers. Sometimes something like this is going to work for you as well. Now you might wonder, what do these numbers on the bag stand for? Each one of these actually stands for a percentage. So this bag is 30% nitrogen, 0% phosphorus, and 3% potassium. So now that we know that each of these is percentages, you're probably wondering, how does that equate to what I'm actually putting down in the lawn? Now you might hear when people talk about application rates, they'll talk about putting down 3 pounds per thousand of product on the lawn. Essentially what that means is per every quadrant of 1,000 square feet, you're going to be putting down 3 pounds of this product in that area. So for a bag like this, that's 55 pounds, you can do some basic math. 55 divided by 3, and that's how many square feet this bag will cover. And essentially that's what the producers do when they put the coverage on the bag. So down here it says covers 17,940 square feet. That's essentially that 55 pounds divided by 3 pounds per thousand, which is the recommended rate, and that's going to go on your lawn. Now you're probably saying, Wade, if I put down 3 pounds per thousand on my lawn, how much nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus am I actually getting in my lawn? Well, this is where we can do some quick math here. If we're looking at 30% nitrogen, so let's say this is in every pound of this bag, we have 30% nitrogen and 3% potassium. If we put this down at 3 pounds per thousand, that means we are getting 30 times 3, which is 0.09 or 90%, or basically almost a full pound in of nitrogen in the lawn, as well as we're getting about 1/10 of a pound of potassium in the lawn. So essentially you can take these percentages, times them by the application rate, and that's going to tell you how much nitrogen you're actually getting in the lawn. Now another question I get all the time is, you look at this 30 and plus 3, that only equals 33%. People go, well, what the hell else is in this bag if it's only 33% nitrogen? There's lots of other things in this bag. There's lots of fillers that have to be put in to help broadcast the product. At the end of the day, when they push these products into these little prills, it's not 100% nitrogen. They have to put other things basically to help carry the product in a dissolvable state so that when you do put it on your lawn, it can be soluble as well. Most fertilizers have some other micronutrients that they have mixed in. Some of them you might see have a little bit of magnesium, a little bit of sulfur, a little bit of iron. These are all great additives to help produce extra color, give you an extra thicker lawn, darker color, all that stuff. That's what you can see sometimes when you look at fertilizer and you wonder what the extra percentage is in that bag. So now that we know what type of fertilizer we're putting down and why, let's take a look at how we're going to put that fertilizer down on the lawn, how much fertilizer we need and why. So this is normally when people get quite scared. People have heard about burning the lawn and damaging or striping the lawn. All this stuff is plausible, and in fact, I do have an area in the lawn over there that I burned in the fall. Now, burning the lawn is not something to be majorly concerned about. The only time that I've ever burned the lawn, it was just a spill. The only way you can burn your lawn is essentially you spill a large amount of fertilizer, it sloshes out of the hopper, you hit a big bump and it slides out of the hopper, and it all lands in one concentrated area. And that's what happened over here in the fall. So in the fall, I was rushing really fast to try to get some fertilizer down on the lawn here before it was going to rain, and I came around this corner here and the spreader actually kind of tipped and we spilled a little bit of fertilizer right here. This is essentially this little bit of area that got burnt. It is recovering. It's going to recover at its own pace, but that's the only way you can burn a lawn. Even if you over apply, if you made some horrible math mistake and you over apply on the lawn and you put down, at twice the bag recommended rate, most of these fertilizers have slow release nitrogen, urea, or other slow release products. Your lawn is not going to get hit with this big snap of nitrogen, and you're not going to see these mass burnings of lawns. If that was the case, everybody would see them burn lawns, because I doubt that anybody of the regular homeowner mind actually puts down fertilizer at the recommended bag rate. Most people just buy a bag and put it down the lawn until they run out. So that's what we're talking about here when we talk about burning. Essentially what you have to be concerned about is you have to be concerned about spilling. So the biggest recommendation I can make, and the things that I haven't followed whenever I've burnt my own lawn, is don't fill up the hopper with the spreader sitting on the lawn. Most of the time that's when I spill. When you're trying to pour the product out of the bag into the hopper of the spreader, it spills out the side, and that's normally when I end up burning the lawn. Or take it slow, make sure that you're not taking any sharp turns, and don't overfill the hopper. Sometimes we get a little excited, or we get a little lazy or rushing, and we overfill the hopper, and that's normally when you hit a bump or you hit an uneven surface, the hopper tends to tip, and that's when you get spilling, which then leads to burning. So without further ado, let's take a look at my back lawn and let's try to figure out how much product we need and what application rate we do when we put it down there. Alright, so this is my back lawn here behind me, but what we're going to do, we're going to start from scratch. We're going to pretend that I've never been here before, and we're going to try to figure out how much product we need to cover this back lawn. So the first thing you need to do is you need to measure your lawn. Now you can get out with a tape measure and measure the lawn, go back to grade 2 math, how you measure area, length times width. So you need to know the length of your lawn plus the width of your lawn. Don't be too concerned about any garden beds or anything like that. We can always use some minor rounding to get around those areas. Just try to get a rough idea about how big your lawn is and how many square feet it is. But I'm going to show you a little trick I learned when estimating landscape projects for my day job that gives an easier way to measure lawn without a tape measure, especially if you have a large lawn like me, where measuring with a tape measure is just not plausible. Every step that you take with your feet as a human is about 3 feet. Now obviously it's not perfect. I'm 6'3", my steps are definitely more than 3 feet, and if you're shorter, your steps may be less, but the best way to do this is just pace it out. Pace it out with steps and then multiply it by 3, and that's going to give you a rough idea about how long and wide your lawn is. So without further ado, I'm going to start here at the deck, and I'm going to walk all the way to the back of the lawn. We're going to figure out how long it is, and then we're going to do the width. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so I just paced it out from the deck over there all the way up here. I got 36 paces. 36 times 3 is 108. So the backyard is 108 feet long, which is actually pretty close. I have measured it with a tape measure when I put the irrigation system in, and I was about 110. So we're gonna call that pretty good. 108 this way, and now let's measure widthwise from my property line over there all the way over there. So we're gonna do the same thing, same pace method. We're gonna count out the paces and multiply by 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I just paced out from the property line over to here, and I got 33 paces. So we're gonna go 33 times 3, which is 99. For simplicity's sake, we're just gonna call it 100. So we're gonna call this 100 by 108 feet. So now, if we can remember back to basic elementary school math, area of a rectangle is length times width. So what we're gonna do, 108 times 100, and that's gonna tell me how many square feet I have in my backyard. So basic math in the backyard, 108 times 100 gives me 10,800 square feet. So that's what we're gonna call my back lawn here, 10,800 square feet. That's how much we need to cover, and now we need to figure out how much product we need to cover that 10,800 square feet I have in my backyard. So application rates for fertilizers most of the time go at a specific rate of pounds of products, multiple of pounds of products per 1,000 square feet of coverage. So my backyard is nice and easy. I have 10,800 square feet in my backyard, like we just said. So what we're gonna do to figure out how many units, our units is 1,000 square feet, how many units we need to cover, we're gonna divide 10,800 by 1,000, because 1,000 is each unit or each square measurement we've created that we need to cover. So if you go 10,800 divided by 1,000, that's 10.8 units we need to cover in the back. So we're just going to call that 11 units. Let's call it 11 units of fertilizer we need to cover in the back. So we have 11 individual plots of 1,000 square feet that we're going to cover in the back. Now, if you can imagine this, we're putting down the product at 3 pounds per 1,000. So each individual plot of 1,000 square feet in the backyard needs 3 pounds of product on it. So we have 11 plots, and each plot needs 3 pounds per 1,000. So we're going to take our units, which is 11, and we're going to times it by the amount of pounds per 1,000 we are putting our product down, which is 3. So that gives me 33 pounds of product is what I need to put down in the backyard. So now there's 2 ways you can figure this out for your application. You can take your fertilizer bag, and what you can do is you can pour it in a 5-gallon bucket and use a fish scale or some sort of scale that you have at home and measure until you get 33 pounds of product in that bucket. Once you get that, you can put it into your broadcast or drop spreader and go ahead and put it on the lawn. Keep spreading until you run out of product. That's how you know you've got a perfect application of 3 pounds per 1,000 down on that lawn. Now there's another way that you can measure it out, and let's take a look at the way that I normally do it. So as I mentioned before, you don't have to be too concerned about being insanely accurate with these products. If you over apply or under apply by a little bit, it's not going to burn your lawn. It's not going to be the end of the world. So the way I look at this, I have 55 pounds of product in this bag, and we want to put down 33 pounds of product. So I would look at that. 33 pounds is about 2/3 of the bag. So essentially I would cut the bag open, I would start pouring it in the hopper, and I would pour until I had about 2/3 of the bag left. That's a quick way to measure. If you don't have a scale, you don't have a fish scale, you don't have any way to measure it at home, go until you have about 2/3 of the bag left, and that's how you have a pretty good idea that you've got your correct application rate down. For example, if you had a lawn that was going to cover 55 pounds, you would pour the full bag in, and then that's how you know you got enough. If you only needed 22 pounds of product, then you would pour about half the bag in. You can use the measurement of the bag to kind of determine how much product you need without needing a scale or any specific super scientific way to measure how much product you're putting down. So now that we have our application area measured and we know how much product and what type of product we're putting down, next let's look about how to go about putting down the product on the lawn. There's 2 different options you can use to spread this product on your lawn. Let's go take a look at them. All right, so contrary to some people's popular belief, you don't need a fancy $500 Lesco spreader to put down fertilizer in your backyard. You just simply don't. Here are 2 great options you can pick up at your local big box store to put down fertilizer on your lawn, depending on exactly what you're looking for. What we have here is, on my left, we have a Scott's broadcast spreader. This is the deluxe version. They're about 150 bucks at your local big box store. Anybody can get one of these and use it to put down fertilizer on your lawn. And on my right here, we have a Scott's drop spreader. Now this is going to be a more accurate way to put down the fertilizer on a larger lawn. This is going to be a more accurate way to put down fertilizer on a smaller lawn. So I would say if you live in a townhouse or an area with a really small lawn, drop spreader is going to be the best option for you. If this is all you have, it's not going to be a problem. You can go ahead and use it. But if you live in a bigger lawn, this broadcast spreader is going to be the perfect option for you. The broadcast spreaders are a little bit more idiot proof. The drop spreaders do take a little bit more finesse, and there's a little bit more of a margin for error with the drop spreaders. So without further ado, let's show you how both of these spreaders work, the differences between the two of them, and what we're looking at here. So I've pulled back the camera a little bit here just to do a bit quick overview. This is a drop spreader. Essentially what we have here, the product goes in the hopper here. There's a handle up here that controls the slide gate, which opens at the bottom and allows the product to fall down. In a drop spreader, there's two lines here on the outside of the drop spreader. There's a big hole here at the bottom. There's an impeller on the inside. You're gonna fill the hopper with product, and essentially what you're gonna see is the product is gonna fall out of the bottom here and land on the surface. You are not getting any sort of broadcast. There's a specific swath here, wheel to wheel. That's where the product is gonna fall out. When you use this to put down fertilizer, you are going to be seeing a specific line of product coming out of here, and you're gonna be going from wheel to wheel, back to back, over top. This only drops product down, does not broadcast product. That's why this is perfect for small lawns. Next we have the broadcast spreader. This spreader broadcasts product in a large semicircle swath with, again, very similar to the drop spreader. There's a hopper here that the product goes into. There's a slide gate that opens and closes that allows the product to fall through the spreader. This one is a deluxe model. It has an edge guard. The edge guard is down here at the bottom. It folds out and blocks the product from shooting out on one side, so you can kind of throw a semicircle if you don't want to get products on patios, driveways, or into your neighbor's lawn, or into any sort of vegetable garden or anything like that. Again, it has an impeller to help mix up the product and send it out. And it has this impeller down here as well that the product falls onto. It spins with the wheels and broadcasts that product out on the backyard space. With this one, you're going to be throwing wheel to wheel, back to back. There's a little bit more of a margin to error in this because of the broadcast pattern. You can kind of do a little bit of more overlapping with this than you can do with this spreader. So first of all, the drop spreader, I would only recommend buying this if you have a really small lawn. Again, here's what we talked about. You have this splot at the bottom. This is where your product is going to fall down and land, wheel to wheel on the inside. It has a little arrow mark here indicating where they're expecting you to overlap with your previous pass. There's the impeller in the bottom that spins. Underneath that impeller, there is a slide gate that's open and closed by this lever here. Up here on the lever, there's a number right there. You spin this and you change the setting about how far you want that slide gate to open. That's how much product that's coming out and landing on the ground. The broadcast spreader over here, again, here's your hopper where all your product goes in. We got a little impeller agitator in there to help the product feed. That's the slide gate at the bottom. When I pull this handle, the slide gate's open, the product falls through and lands down in there on the impeller below. Again, this handle opens the slide gate at the bottom. We got a little dial here to choose the setting. The higher we go on the dial, all the way up to 15, as you can see, slide gate opens almost all the way. The lower we go on the dial, we go all the way to 2. As you can see, slide gate barely opens. We have this little edge guard here. You turn this on and off. Essentially, this moves this little orange paddle on the side here, and this kind of blocks off the fertilizer from coming out on this side. Here's the impeller down below. From that hole we saw on the inside of the hopper, the fertilizer is falling, landing on this impeller, and this impeller spins as you walk, and it's broadcasting the product out on either side. So for the purpose of this video, we are going to be showing how to applicate with a broadcast spreader, because I believe that this is the easiest to use, the most idiot proof, and probably the one that most homeowners own. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at how to apply with a broadcast spreader. So for starters, if I had a big lawn like this, the first thing you do with a broadcast spreader, you're going to go all the way around. So you're going to start here on the edge, you're going to go all the way around in between you and your neighbor, all the way around the back, along the gardens, all the way back and down here. I like to try to section areas off into squares as much as possible when I'm putting down fertilizer. It provides the easiest way to put it down and the least problem for mistakes or over applicating or double applicating areas. So as we go around on the outside, I'm going to keep a little bit of distance in from the flower bed. So I'm tossing a little bit of fertilizer in the flower beds. I like to put a little fertilizer in the flower beds. It doesn't hurt the flowers, and it helps the flowers and the lawn as well. And making sure I'm getting a good application and not missing anything all the way around. So let me grab the spreader and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So essentially, if you could imagine, I have product in the spreader. and I'm coming up to the edge here. I'm going to keep the edge guard off around the outside of my flower beds. I'm going to pull the trigger, and I'm going to put down an application. You know, I'm staying about this far away from the edge of the flowers. This is showing that I'm going to be tossing a little bit of product in those flower beds, as well as making sure that I'm not missing any areas as I go all the way around the lawn. Once I've completed my trim pass around the entire lawn, we're going to start making up and down passes on the lawn, tossing the product back to the previous wheel marks. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say I'm starting here, I'm going to make a pass all the way up to the top, and I'm going to come back the other way. So let's do that right now. So it's a little hard to see on camera, but essentially my previous pass was about right here where my hand is. So now I've come to the top, I've stopped the spread, made a little turn here, and I'm going to start again right here. As I'm walking down, I'm going to be tossing that product back to the previous wheel marks of my pass. So essentially on every pass we are going to be double applicating between the wheel marks of the spreader. This helps mitigate some of the defects in these spreaders. These cheap Scott spreaders, they tend to throw a lot more product between the wheels than they do broadcast around. So between the wheels we're not touching, but we're going to be double applicating this area between the wheels, between this pass and the consecutive pass. Without further ado, take a look at this video with this voiceover of me putting down fertilizer on my lawn a few days ago. Alrighty, so as you can see here on the front lawn, we are doing a trim pass all the way around the lawn, all the way around the outside. You're going to see me go up here, and then I disappear at the camera view, come back the other way, all the way down around the outside of the lawn. As I mentioned, keeping that slight distance away from the garden beds. If you want to use the edge guard, you can use the edge guard to keep from tossing onto a patio or any sort of obstruction like that. Once we've completed the trim pass all the way around the outside, we're going to start going up and down, continuous passes, throwing back to the wheel marks of the previous pass. So as you can see, we're going up here, up the lawn, we make it to the end of the pass, we shut off the spreader, we turn the spreader around, and then we head back down. Most of these passes are probably spaced maybe 6-7 feet apart. The broadcast spreader shows about 3 feet either way, and we're just tossing back to the previous wheel marks of the previous pass. So let's take a look quickly here at the same application just in the back lawn. So as you can see, I did a trim pass all the way around just like in the front, and now I'm doing these up and down passes, as you can see, all the way down, throwing back to the previous wheel marks of the previous pass. And then once we make it to the end of the pass, we stop the spreader, let go, close the slide gate, turn the spreader around, open the slide gate again, and toss back to the wheel marks of the previous pass. This way we're putting a double application between those wheel marks, and we're making sure that everything is getting nice and covered. As you can see here, throwing back to those distinct wheel marks you can see in the grass, covering everything. Alright, so the last thing we need to know when we're talking about fertilizing our lawn is what to set the opening on the spreader to before we start our application in the back lawn. Now let's take a look at the Scott spreader and kind of tell you what I've learned over time. So what I most of the time recommend to people is you're going to set your spreader to the lowest setting. So as we mentioned in the backyard, we needed 33 pounds of product to cover this backyard. We're going to put 33 pounds of product in the hopper. We're going to set the hopper to the lowest setting, and we're going to go ahead and start broadcasting it on the backyard. Essentially, we're going to go do our trim pass, as we mentioned, go up and down, wheel mark to wheel mark across the entire backyard, and then we're going to look at the hopper and see how much we have left. If we've set the hopper to the correct setting, our hopper should be completely empty. There should be no product left. If we set our hopper too low, we should have about half a hopper left. We're going to need to go over the lawn again because we weren't broadcasting enough product. If we've set our opening too big, then we will make it halfway through the lawn and we'll be out of product. And essentially means that instead of putting it down at 3 pounds per thousand, you're putting it down at 4 pounds per thousand. So what I recommend most often is set your spreader low, and then you can go ahead and go cover the lawn twice, but this way you're not going to make it halfway through the lawn and realize that too much product's coming out at once and you now have over applied and you need to continue, go get some more to try to even out that application to make sure you don't get any weird striping issues. With these Scott spreaders and with the pace that I walk at, I normally see rated around 4 or 5 for that proprietary Scott's number. That's what I would recommend to set your spreader to. Essentially, those prills or those little tiny prills that the fertilizer comes in, you should check to make sure that those will actually fit through the slide gate opening. And if that will fit through the slide gate opening, then that's the setting you want to leave it at. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this opening here is the slide gate open we're talking about, and right here this is a tiny little prill of fertilizer, and we're gonna essentially put that on there. We're gonna pull the slide gate open. I'm gonna set this to that 5 number that I said I found best, and when I pull that gate open, see how that prill fell right through? That's what I like to see. If your slide gate is set at 2, for example, or the really low numbers, and you pull that slide gate open and those prills aren't fitting through, you're not going to be putting down any product. When you start fertilizing, you should actually see the product coming out of the spreader being broadcast. If you're not seeing it, you've made a mistake and you're not putting down enough product. The final question I get most often is, how fast should I be walking while I'm applying fertilizer to my backyard? And my answer to this is it should be about a double fast walk, or put some ass into it walk. You should be breaking a sweat while you're putting it down, but you shouldn't be running or jogging, but essentially it should be between a run and a jog. You should be moving fast enough. If you're moving too slow, the spreader's not going to be broadcasting at a correct rate and you're going to be seeing some problems. If you're moving too fast, you're going to be throwing the product too far and you're not going to be covering a correct swath. So a double fast walk, put some ass into it walk, that's the walk we should be seeing when we're putting down fertilizer. So without further ado, I think we've covered everything you need to know here when we're talking about fertilizing your lawn and what you need to know about fertilizing your lawn in the spring. If you guys are looking for any more questions or direction, make sure you visit my website, greatgreennorthlc.com. Send an email through my email, greatgreennorthlawncare@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below in this video. We got lots more great content coming up here. Next week we're going to be talking about applying liquid products and how to go about that, and we're going to be talking about covering the lawn in the back here. Lots of great videos coming up here in the spring, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and you stick around for more great Canadian lawn care content coming up here on the Great Green North. From the Great Green North, my name is Wade Murray. Thank you guys for watching and supporting the channel. As always, keep it green.